Hello to all the channel subscribers. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to watch the latest summaries, and our film today begins with a man named Jean, enjoying the sunshine and sunbathing by the pool while waiting for Marianne, his girlfriend. When Marianne arrives, they spend some intimate time together. Afterwards, we see Marianne answering a phone call from Harry, her old friend and a music producer, who was also her ex-boyfriend. Harry tells her that he's on his way to visit the Riviera in France, where Marianne lives. Marianne invites him to come over as soon as he arrives. Marianne goes to Jean and tells him what happened, and it's clear that Jean doesn't like Harry. Despite this, Marianne invites Harry to visit. Harry arrives in his new car, accompanied by his daughter Penny, who no one knew about. When Harry sees Marianne, he immediately hugs her and introduces his daughter. Marianne introduces them to Jean, and Harry tells them he was supposed to be in Milan with his daughter, but Marianne convinces him to stay with them for a few days. Marianne takes Penny to show her around the villa, and suddenly Jean grabs Penny's hand and asks her how old she is. She replies that she's 18. That evening, Jean is unhappy with Harry's presence and asks Marianne why she invited him to stay. Marianne tries to reassure him that Harry is just a friend, and that they'll have a great time together. The next morning during breakfast, Harry asks Marianne how things are going and flirts with her without caring about Jean, which sparks jealousy and anger in Jean. Jean notices Penny wearing a bikini by the pool, while Harry is playing music and watching Marianne, who is also in a bikini. Penny notices Harry's interest in Marianne, and Jean leaves, visibly upset. Later, they all sit by the pool, and Harry suggests they go out to meet his friends, but Jean and Marianne decline. After Harry leaves, Jean and Marianne take the opportunity to play together. Afterwards, they sit with Penny, who asks Marianne how long she's been with Jean, and Marianne replies they've been together for 2 years. Penny then asks about Marianne's relationship with her father, to which Marianne responds that they were together for 6 or 7 years. Harry returns to the villa with his friends, and they throw a big party. However, Penny isn't enjoying the party, and Harry spends the whole time dancing with Marianne, making Jean even angrier. As the atmosphere between Harry and Marianne becomes romantic, Penny gets upset with her father's behavior and leaves the party. Jean follows her, and Penny tells him that she feels uncomfortable with her father's relationship with Marianne. Jean tells her that it doesn't matter to him. Meanwhile, they stand near the guitarist and try to enjoy the party, with Jean placing his hand on Penny, unaware that Marianne is watching them from afar. The next morning, Marianne confronts Jean about what happened with Penny, and he, in turn, asks her about her behavior with Harry. Harry tries to talk to his daughter, Penny, who is angry with him for his actions with Marianne, especially since Marianne is about to marry Jean. Jean then joins the group and asks Harry when he plans to marry Marianne, which further fuels Jean's anger. At that moment, Marianne asks Harry to join her for shopping, and Jean is extremely agitated. While shopping, Harry tries to flirt with Marianne and suggests that she come back to him, but she refuses. Meanwhile, Penny talks to Jean about her father, revealing that she doesn't like or respect him, as he abandoned her mother when she was young and only returned after 17 years. She also tells Jean that her father is trying to win Marianne back. Harry admits that he has no skills in wooing women. Later, Marianne returns to the villa and finds no one there, so she asks the maid where Jean is. The maid tells her that Jean and Penny went out some time ago. Jean and Penny return in the evening after spending the entire day at the beach. Marianne invites them to dinner, but there is clear tension at the table. After dinner, Penny goes to her room, and Marianne tells Jean, "Do whatever you want, with your own spirit." She adds, "Why don't you have a relationship with Penny? Since she arrived, you haven't been able to take your eyes off her." Jean responds, "Do you think I haven't noticed your relationship with Harry? I'll be leaving soon." Afterward, we see Marianne crying in her room. Later that night, Harry and Jean sit and talk. Harry asks Jean about his intentions towards Penny and threatens to make her leave the next day. A fight breaks out between them, with Harry attempting to hit Jean, but he falls into the pool, as Harry was drunk. Jean prevents Harry from getting out of the water, deliberately drowning him. After Harry dies, Jean drags his body out, removes his clothes, and throws them into the forest, before returning Harry's body to the water to make it appear as though he drowned while swimming. The next day, people gather for Harry's funeral, and Marianne discovers his body. After the funeral, Marianne tells Jean that she will leave the next day, and Jean agrees to the same. Meanwhile, Jean meets Inspector Lent, who plans to investigate the circumstances of Harry's death. The inspector notes that the clothes found around the pool belong to Harry, and suggests that someone may have hidden them. The next day, the inspector returns and asks Marianne about his suspicions that Harry was murdered, explaining some additional details about Harry's death, such as the fact that his pockets were empty and didn't contain any money or ID. He also notes that the clothes showed no signs of sweat, indicating that someone had thrown him into the water. After the inspector leaves, Marianne checks Harry's closet, but Jean arrives and asks her what she told the inspector. At that moment, Marianne realizes that Jean killed Harry. Jean confesses everything to Marianne, and she asks where he hid Harry's clothes. He tells her. The next day, Marianne takes Penny to the airport to return home. Before leaving, Penny asks Marianne, "Do you know if someone killed my father?" But Marianne remains silent and doesn't answer. After that, Marianne meets with the inspector, who asks her if she has any new information. She replies that she doesn't. The inspector tells her that the case is still open. Later, we see Jean and Marianne preparing to leave the villa, but Marianne tells Jean she won't go with him because she no longer trusts him. Marianne tries to call a taxi, but Jean hangs up the phone, preventing her from calling. The two continue staring at each other for a long time, and then we see them standing together by the window, looking at the pool. In the end, they engage in a romantic relationship, and thus Jean escapes punishment for his crime, living happily with Marianne after getting rid of her ex-boyfriend Harry. And so our film ends. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video to watch the latest summaries.